Hey guys, tonight we're swapping TikTok scrolls for Tang Dynasty courtyards. Picture a world where humidity is 90% regret and 100% aesthetic. Quick reality check. If you can't handle servants side-eyeing your sweat stains, you won't survive these tea-stained social codes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Toss your current city and local time in the comments. Let's see how many 3 a.m. insomniacs we've got riding shotgun. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sunlight arrows through the ginkgo canopy, each leaf a stained glass filter for the August heat. You sit cross-legged on a mat that's worn smoother than a philosopher's favorite proverb. Jasmine steam ribbons through the air. Every breath feels like drinking perfume. Overhead, a dragonfly trapped in the tree's crown ticks like a living metronome. 7 servants glide across the courtyard, porcelain cups, balanced on trays older than your hometown. Their wooden sandals scuff dew from the stones, polishing them to liquid obsidian with every step. The Tang elite called these courtyards sky mirrors. True story, they're white gravel floors designed to reflect moonlight for midnight poetry sessions. Today, they're just baking in the sun like clay roof tiles. Your host's celadon teacup sweats as much as you do. Its crackle-glaze surface mimicking river ice in spring. 3 sips in, and the oolong already tastes like someone wrung out a mossy towel. Cicadas rev their engines beyond the eastern wall, a chainsaw chorus, undercut by the clink of cups. Historians still argue whether Tang nobles imported those bugs intentionally, or if they just had terrible pest control. A servant refills your cup. Her thumbprint stains the rim where lip rouge once clung. You wonder how many mouths this porcelain has outlived. A breeze rasps through, offering less relief than the idea of relief. It carries the sour tang of pickled plums from the kitchen, and wait, is that fermented squid? You don't ask. 2 fan bearers flank your shoulders, their peacock feathers stirring air thick enough to chew. Their synchronized sighs sync with your eyelid blinks. One's robe slips open, revealing a scarred shoulder blade branded with the character for 23. Coerced labor tally. Mafia debts. You file it under Tang mysteries, best left unsolved. The merchant arrives like a chess piece, gliding across the board. His indigo robes dyed with enough lapis lazuli to bankrupt a smaller province. His bow is all sharp angles, the kind that says I'm respecting you, but my accountant's doing the math. True fact, the Tang merchant class legally ranked below farmers, but somehow funded half the empire's silk roads. He pours tea with hands steady as temple pillars, knuckles scarred from sealing wax and haggling. His thumbnail shines cobalt blue, stained by the same counterfeit dye that's turning local aristocrats urine neon. You count 7 water rings staining the table, each a timestamp of awkward silence. When he finally speaks, his voice could etch jade. You've come during the cicadas' rebellion. Translation: invasion season. A servant drops a tray. The smash fractures into 9 porcelain screams. Nobody moves. Cicadas fill the void with static, their legs scratching like ink brushes on cheap paper. The merchant's eyelid throbs once, hard. 3 heartbeats later, the servant's dragged off by her wrist, her uneven steps echoing the rhythm of a punishment ballad. Your next sip tastes like shame and oversteeped leaves. Across the courtyard, a boy in a turnip-patterned tunic peers from behind a pillar. He mouths something. You catch the word ginkgo before a hand yanks him backward. Tang parenting goals, am I right? The fan bearers quicken their tempo, stirring the merchant's lentis resin perfume into your nostrils. It mixes with your own sweat, creating a funk that make a yak farmer blush. Suddenly, hooves. 10, 12. The courtyard freezes mid-pour. Even the cicadas choke on their encore. Imperial guards, tax auditors, a really determined lychee salesman. The merchant's cup trembles, sloshing tea into his saucer. The spilled liquid forms a snake that curls toward the table's edge, a liquid omen nobody needs. Then laughter. High, bright, and clueless, a wedding procession passes the outer wall gongs, clashing with the rhythm of a drunk arrhythmia. Everyone exhales. The merchant's shoulders dip a millimeter, closest thing to relief he'll allow. He snaps his fingers. 18 porcelain cups reappear like magic. The third infusion smells like panic, steeped in river weeds. A cicada dive bombs your hair, its wings buzzing straight into your left eardrum. You flinch, elbow catching the teapot. Hot oolong water falls onto the merchant's sleeve. Time stops. The fan bearers suck air through their teeth, a sound that could flay parchment. He blots the stain with a handkerchief that's seen more dramas than a courtyard concubine. The day brews, Chinese letter. He murmurs, using the word for accidents that also means unwanted tea leaves. Classic Tang wordplay. You force a chuckle, it comes out as a tubercular wheeze. As attendants mop up the carnage, you notice the boy again, half hidden in the kitchen's steam. He draws characters on the wall with wet fingers. Before the sun can claim them, you decode the fading strokes. Ginkgo seeds. West well. Midnight. The merchant follows your gaze, smooths his ruined sleeve into a smile. Another infusion. You edge closer to the hearth where iron kettles sigh like lovers' whispers. The brewmaster's hands move like startled spiders, all elbows and sudden jerks, as he tends the flames. Each twist of his wrist sends steam spiraling, amber liquid swirling clockwise 7 times. Counting them feels sacred, like tracing sutras in temple dust. They say this ritual predates the Tang itself, passed down since tea was medicine for emperors. Historians still argue whether those early brews tasted like dragon's piss or liquid jade. The steam thickens, curling into cranes, wings calligraphy above his head. You squint. Those looping characters look suspiciously like your uncle's drunken poetry. A servant bumps your elbow, muttering apologies through a mouthful of unhusked rice, and the vision evaporates. 7 swirls, the brewmaster intones, as if you hadn't been paying attention, or the demons drink first. His apron's stained with 37 seasons of trial and error. Or so he claims every solstice. Heat licks your cheeks as he pours a cascade of roasted barley and aged peony bark. The Tang elite would have traded half their silk for this brew. Too bad they died before inventing Yelp reviews. You sip, bitterness floods your tongue, then dissolves into something like apricot skins and regret. 4th infusion's the sweet spot. He grumbles, plucking a stray tea leaf from his beard. It's the same beard, rumor claims, that once caught fire during a particularly enthusiastic dragon while tasting. A gong echoes, not the polished bronze kind, but a warped replica from some bankrupt Sichuan tea house. The brewmaster freezes mid-pour, hot stream missing your cup entirely. 8 copper kettles scream in unison, their spouts coughing steam like miniature volcanoes. He curses in 3 dialects you're definitely not supposed to recognize. 30 heartbeats. He hisses, dumping the overbrewed mess into a cracked cistern. That's all the gods give you between perfection and swill. Across the courtyard, cats yawn in time with the kettle's cooling creaks. You notice the hearth bricks are carved with tiny tea leaves, each no larger than a mouse's ear. Someone's ancient joke, maybe, or a failed attempt at measuring infusion times. The brewmaster kicks a charred log, sparks swarm like drunken fireflies, and mutters about Fujianese, upstarts who steep oolong in goat milk. Heresy, he spits, which you roughly translate as I tried it once and choked. Shadows stretch, slinking over clay jars, labeled in faded vermilion ink. One reads Spring Rain Harvest, Dragon Year in shaky characters. Another just says mistake, do not open. The brewmaster catches you squinting and slams the cellar door. His left eye twitches, the same eye local gossips whisper that he lost for 7 days after snorting powdered pu'erh in 42. You decide not to ask. Dust motes swirl where the steam once wrote its ephemeral poetry. There's a lesson here about impermanence, or maybe just bad ventilation. The brewmaster thrusts a new cup into your hands, the glaze still sticky from some cost-cutting artisan. Count the bubbles, he orders, already turning back to his screeching kettles. You obey, because arguing would waste good tea, and because his cleaver's within arm's reach. 73 bubbles rise and burst before he nods, apparently satisfied. A breeze carries the scent of salted plums and impending rain. Somewhere beyond the courtyard walls, a donkey brays its disapproval. The brewmaster doesn't flinch, too busy scraping mineral deposits from his favorite strainer. Lime kills the spirit of the leaf, he explains, though you suspect it's just cheaper than buying a new one. His hands never stop moving, testing temperatures, adjusting vents, a chaotic dance perfected through decades of near disasters. You drain the last lukewarm dregs, catching a hint of pomelo peel and something alarmingly metallic. The brewmaster smirks, tossing a rust-caked ladle into a water bucket, improves circulation. He lies smoothly, wiping his palms on thighs worn shiny by ambition. Behind him, the crane's wings script reforms in the steam, this time spelling out what looks suspiciously like help. You blame the barley fumes. Dusk stains the eastern sky when he finally sits, wooden stool groaning under decades of caffeine-fueled vigilance. He offers you a brick of compressed tea leaves wrapped in hemp and gilt from the mountains, he says, though the label claims it's from his cousin's basement. You pocket it anyway. Gifts from cranky artisans beat, explaining why you returned empty-handed to the merchant's third wife. Firelight glints off the kettle's bronze belly, etching the brewmaster's shadow, giant across the courtyard wall. For a heartbeat, he looks like one of those legendary tea sages, the ones who could brew harmony into existence. Then he sneezes, scattering ash across 3 generations of perfect pours, and the illusion shatters. Out, he barks, already scrubbing the insulted kettles. The moon's no help for oversteeped fools. You retreat, stepping over a puddle of rejected chai that's fermenting into something sentient. Cicadas resume their racket, unimpressed by mortal concerns over infusion times. Somewhere nearby, the merchant's eldest son drops a celadon platter. Its shatter echoes like a cracked bell. The brewmaster's curse follows you all the way to the moonlit peonies. The sparrow's landing rattles your tray, claws tap dancing across jade inlays like a street performer on copper coins. Its beady eyes lock onto your leftover tea crumbs, daring you to protest. Lotus-Broken-Silence arrives in a rustle of undyed hemp, third wife of the merchant and unofficial keeper of forbidden brews. Historians still argue whether her name refers to shattered quietude or a particularly disastrous pond incident in 1916. Metallic chimes shiver from her hairpin, each charm shaped like a drowning tea leaf. You've heard theories about those chimes. Some say they ward off bad infusions. Others whisper its code for lovers' trysts. The bird freezes, a sesame seed clutched in its beak, as her shadow falls across the tray's lacquer. Unsteamed oolong, she announces, placing a clay pot that smells like moss and rebellion. Autumn wind plucks at her sleeves, revealing calligraphy scars along her wrists. You've read about Tang noblewomen etching poems into their skin. This looks more like inventory lists. The merchant prefers his leaves withered. She adds, pouring liquid the color of tarnished silver. Steam rises in reluctant spirals. No cheerful curls here, just ghosts of heat fleeing upward. The first sip tastes like licking a wet coin, then unfolds into smoky orchards after rain. Grown in caves, she murmurs her chimes, trembling with each word, where sunlight's a rumor and bats name the tea. A servant drops a broom 3 courtyards west. The clatter sends the sparrow fleeing skyward. Lotus-Broken-Silence watches its escape, expression unreadable as a sealed tax scroll. You count 12 heartbeats before she blinks, long enough to wonder if Tang courtesans practiced such pauses deliberately. Demand doubles every monsoon, she says, referring to either bats or oolong. But the caves flood by midsummer. Her nail taps the pot 3 quick strikes, a habit picked up from the merchant's favorite concubine. Or so the kitchen maids claim. Distant laughter spills over a wall, the merchant's sons gambling with cinnamon sticks again. The third wife's gaze flicks toward the noise, her hairpin dimming mid-chime. Some claim she was a spice trader's daughter, sold after her father's pepper shipments sank near Guangzhou. You don't ask, it's rude to question why someone serves tea with military precision. Second, pours smoother. She warns, replenishing your cup despite your half-full protest. This batch carries whispers of charcoal and cedar sap, a smuggler's campfire hidden in fog. Your tongue tingles, either from rare minerals or impending regret. She tilts her head, 16 chimes swaying as a cloud smothers the sun. Steaming dulls the leaf's true nature, she declares, a heresy punishable by 6 weeks of tea bowl scrubbing. But then again, her sister married a Persian rebel prince, so rules bend like green willow around her. A bee drowns in your cup, legs kicking amber liquid into miniature whirlpools. Lotus-Broken-Silence fishes it out with a hairpin charm, flicking the corpse to an eager sparrow. Sugar stealer, she mutters, wiping her hand on a sleeve embroidered with censored poetry. You're struck by how her frown echoes the merchant's when inspecting moth-eaten silks. Same crease between the brows, same disappointed exhale. If they'd shared more than tax ledgers and stiff bowing, well, that's a question for drunk historians. She leaves as sudden as a snapped string, taking the clay pot, but leaving its metallic aftertaste. 16 chimes fade into the rustle of persimmon leaves, their rhythm matching a ballad about drowned sailors. Your lacquered tray now holds 3 sesame seeds and a splotch of oolong shaped like the Korean peninsula. The sparrow returns, one wing dipped in courtyard dust, and pecks at the stain. Good luck. A passing gardener snickers, or possession by thirsty spirits. You hope it's the one involving apricot wine. Cicadas rev up their symphony as you retreat, each step crunching gravel into grudging submission. Somewhere beyond the spice granary, a child shrieks, teacup shattering, followed by the third wife's icy silence. 16 chimes shiver through the twilight, one for each unread letter from Kashgar, counting down to storms, yet unsipped. The Caravan's final memory clings like cold rice, snow-packed silk road winds howling through camel bells. You'd watched icicles form on bridles, jade daggers dripping onto frozen tea bricks. Now heat hazes twist courtyard dust into stallions, their phantom hooves kicking up mirage foam. Historians still argue whether Tang officials counted these illusions in tax reports. 19 ghost horses grazing Chengdu province, sir. A dove's shadow glides over your wrist, so sharp you check for talon wounds. Its silhouette resembles a merchant's seal, the cotton jade kind used for forged tea permits. You've heard of smugglers training birds to carry contraband, a rumor as plausible as chili pepper bribes. The real heat's in your collar, though sweat pooling, where silver chains chafe, taxation for existing in August. That persistent mirage flicker reminds you of drunken painters, the ones hired to decorate tribute boxes. Their peach blossom landscapes always bled at the edges, like reality itself was sweating. A servant drags a rake through gravel, destroying dust horses, mid-gallop, their forms dissolving into 9 directions. Bad omen, the tea master would mutter. But he also thought fermented mare's milk cured gout. 3 cicadas dive bomb a persimmon, their buzzsaw duet, drowning out distant blacksmith hammers. You count 11 strikes before realizing it's your own temple throbbing. Heat does that liquefies time until minutes drip like candle wax over ledgers. Last winter's snow seems a folktale now. Caravan drivers chipping ice from beards, frozen tea shattering like glass. A kitchen boy staggers past, arms stacked with melons, their green stripes bleeding into orange in the haze. You recall the merchant's 4th wife insisting melon rinds divined monsoon patterns. Split one lengthwise, she'd say, count the seeds, divide by pi. Her calculations always predicted rain and foot fungus. The dove returns, circling the well where shimmering air warps its wings into kites. Some claim mirages show what's missing, like the Caravan's 73 missing horses, or your childhood home's cedar door. You blink, and the courtyard's northern wall wavers, its vermilion paint rippling like pond algae. If you squint, it almost resembles the Xi'an city gates, right before the smuggler's checkpoint. A laugh snags your attention, the 3rd wife's daughter-in-law fanning herself with a bamboo ledger. Her sleeve flutters, revealing smuggled sassinid silver bangles, 26 by your count. Heat melts secrets the merchant once warned, but his 4th concubine's tattooed poetry proved otherwise. 2 servant girls skip stones across the fish pond, each ricochet echoing the clack of abacus beads. Your water skin offers tepid relief, its leather tainted by hemp aftertaste. Bargaining for ice would require conversing with the steward, whose breath smells of pickled plums and resentment. You settle for imagining snow packed into silk bundles, hauled through mountain passes by coughing mules. The dove's shadow passes again, this time bisecting your palm like a fortune teller's blade. Dust devils spiral near the spice vault, tossing star anise pods like dice. You once met a Gobi goat herd who read whirlwinds as love letters from the desert. He'd sigh, written in scorpion venom. The 3rd wife's perfume cuts through osmanthus and unwatered guilt as she inspects sun-bleached silk rolls. Her hairpin chimes 16 times, each note shorter than a dying man's breath. When dusk comes, it arrives, as a beggar streaks of indigo, elbowing aside the sun's tyranny. Lanterns flicker awake, their glow attracting moths, patterned with cursive characters. You swear one reads autumn, another debt. But that's just heat madness talking. Or maybe the third wife's unopened Kashgar letters, their wax seals softening in the humidity, finally confessing their sins. The moon rises, a pu'erh stain on heaven's sleeve, as the last dust horse dissipates. Somewhere beyond the compound, a real stallion whinnies, its cry bending through the haze like a mirage, finally made flesh. You sip tepid water, counting 33 heartbeats, until stars rewrite the courtyard story in blister-pricked ink. The crisp dawn air carries jasmine's ghost. Your niece materializes, with persimmons chilled by midnight winds. Her silk slippers hiss against dew, each step synced to the clink of smuggled lapis bracelets. You bite into fruit flesh, honeyed sweetness wars with your bitter morning pu'erh, a Tang merchant's breakfast of contradictions. Historians still argue whether persimmon trade profits built more summer villas or bribed more border guards. She bows, a bamboo slender curve that falters when her left slipper betrays damp stones. Your palm shoots out, aching in 12 places as porcelain freezes midair. 3 spins, rim wobbling like a drunk acrobat, before the teacup surrenders to stillness. 3 spins mean 3 daughters. The old wives tut their voices, crackling with mulberry leaf tobacco. You half expect the brew to spell a character like that Sichuan shaman's tea leaf fiasco. But it's just dregs and dread. Her nervous laughter tinkles, a wind chime caught in a typhoon. Forgive this clumsy girl, she murmurs, fingering a phoenix hairpin. That's third wife hand-me-down. The persimmon's aftertaste lingers, cloying and sharp like your last marriage proposal. You almost mention the caravan that brought these fruits, how drivers stuffed them in snow-packed crates, but her widened eyes silence you. A servant's shadow crosses the scene, carrying tea bricks stamped with imperial seals. Remember those rumors about counterfeit leaves weighted with sand? This batch supposedly survived a Himalayan rockslide, though you'd bet 10 silver ingots it's just Hunan mud. Your niece retrieves the cup, her sleeve snagging on a nail. A thread unravels toward the fish pond. Neither of you comment on its crimson hue, the color of tax ledgers and new brides. Wind riffles her collar, exposing a jade pendant shaped like a curled fetus. Some Tang nobles buried those with stillborn children, though Cook claims they're just bad luck charms from cotton. You tighten your grip on the teacup, its crack from last winter's quarrel still visible, like patching a broken kiln. The potter's widow had sneered, "You can't fix what's already cooled." She offers another persimmon, this one split to reveal seeds glistening like frog eggs. Mainstream historical fact incoming. Tang elites imported ice houses from Persia to chill summer desserts. But yours just borrows a cellar from the Dyer's Guild. The fruit's frost numbs your tongue You're suddenly 12 again, stealing frozen loquats from your uncle's funeral offerings. A sparrow dive bombs the teacup, triggering her third spill of the hour. This time, you let it shatter, 38 shards glittering like a disassembled constellation. Bad luck, she gasps, already kneeling to gather porcelain teeth. You shrug, recalling the third wife's wedding service. 17 broken cups for 17 doomed pregnancies. Sometimes debris is just debris. Her fingers bleed, 7 crimson beads dotting the stones before you stop her. The sun climbs higher, its glare erasing shadows as the courtyard's rhythm reasserts itself. Somewhere a donkey brays, mimicking the tax collector's laugh, and the moment dissolves like sugar in hot dam water. You spit out a persimmon seed. It arcs toward the fish pond, a tiny surrender to gravity's patient grip. The magnolia's shadow stretches like spider silk across your feet. 3 hunched figures materialize beneath its blooms. Their lute strings groan, a mournful twang that lifts the hair on your neck. You recognize the tune ballad of Salted Leaves, its verses recounting 9 tea ships lost off Hainan's coast. Historians tally 37 verified Tang maritime wrecks, though fishermen still drag up Ming Dynasty spoons from the reef. One musician's fingers find a broken string. He plucks the gap, twisting the melody into discord. His milky eyes reflect nothing, yet you feel watched. The song swirls, painted war junks sinking, sacks of dragon well tea bloating in brine. Your pu'erh suddenly tastes of kelp, an aftertaste you last encountered in Qingdao's fish markets. The second musician hisses through gapped teeth. 5th century Persian dows carried more pepper than swords. Fringe scholars claim Tang sailors navigated by chewing octopus ink, its bitterness aligning with magnetic fields. You doubt it. The sea's too busy laughing at landlubbers. A string snaps, rebounding to stripe your cheek. The blind trio chuckles, a dry rattle of pebbles in bamboo. Their ballad shifts, mentioning the jade rabbit's cargo of pickled plums and silver ingots. You spit pu'erh into the dust. It arcs like the trajectory of discarded empire. One musician taps his forehead. The wreck still breathes in choral formations. They say fish sing its manifests. Your tongue finds a salt crystal lodged in a molar, the same briny grit that choked 812 CE tax envoys. Archaeologists recently carbon dated a Hainan shipwreck's tea cakes. Turns out they were counterfeit leaves from Fujian. The lute's remaining strings weep, a scale mimicking seagull cries. You count 3 rusted coins at the musician's feet, later Dynasty's currency. Nobody bothered to steal. Your cup trembles, pu'erh ripples into concentric oaths. Someone once told you waves carry the dead's unfinished business. Right now, it's screaming oversteeped and underpriced. A child's laugh fractures the dirge your niece's shadow dances across abandoned shards from breakfast. The third musician tilts his head, plucking a discordant note that shivers your collarbone. Foolish girl, he croaks, salt preserves everything. but secrets. Storm clouds bruise the horizon, the scent of lightning priming sailors' bones. Your thumb traces the teacup's chip from section 5, its edge sharp enough to draw blood. The musicians launch into a faster rhythm, a jig for drowning men. You hum along, off-key and unrepentant, until the first raindrops baptize the magnolia's wilted petals. Rainwater sluices down the well's mossy stones, each droplet echoing the lute string's final whimper. The steward hauls the bucket up, hemp fibers biting into his weathered palms. You note his calluses, 8 distinct ridges, wondering how many centuries of laborers left that genetic blueprint. Tang engineers never adopted pulley systems. Those came later, though historians still argue whether it was cost or Confucian conservatism that kept wells creaking. The bucket surfaces, its iron rim kissing the well's lip with a metallic moan. You half expect a wronged concubine's ghost to rise with it. Instead, sunlight fractures through the water's surface, revealing your distorted reflection. Your face ripples into a grotesque parody, nose elongated, eyes slitted like a shadow puppet tiger. The steward grunts, assigning equal disdain for the weather and your presence. He pours water into a cracked urn, the liquid's journey from aquifer to vessel, spanning 117 heartbeats. A fringed Jiazhang Suan Shu text, once claimed well water, absorbs the drinker's regrets. You mentally list yesterday's oversteeped Taiguanian as yours. The steward's hands bleed now, crimson threads spiraling down rope fibers. His breath hitches, each exhalation smelling of wet bark and decaying ledgers. Distant thunder mimics the well wheel's groan. You count drips between the steward's labored breaths, 39, before realizing you've missed the famed 42. Legend says counting precisely reveals your future spouse's face in the water. But your arithmetic's always been shit. The steward mutters a curse, possibly about your lineage, as another gust shakes persimmon leaves into the well. Your toes squelch in mud that smells suspiciously like last week's discarded tea dregs. The urn fills its liquid sloshing with the rhythm of a drunken zither player. You recall Song Dynasty, pulley blueprints gathering dust in Chang'an's archives, too barbarian for Tang aesthetics. The steward spits, a brown globule sinking into the soil, a punctuation mark to centuries of stagnation. Lightning illuminates his face, etching temporary youth into the wrinkles. For a heartbeat, you see the boy who once drew water for Wu Zetian's exiled niece. Then the moment fades, leaving only a man whose joints crack in 6 different dialects. He staggers under the urn's weight, water slopping over the rim to erase his footprints. You squint at the well's depths, its darkness now a quicksilver mirror. 42, 43, 44, the drips accelerate into a monsoon dirge. Historians still argue whether Tang hydrology charts influenced Venetian canal systems. But right now, you're just trying not to slide face first into the mud. The steward vanishes into mist, his absence marked by a single hemp fiber clinging to the well's edge. Your thumb finds the teacup's chip again, its jagged edge mirroring the wellstone's erosion. Water echoes from somewhere subterranean, a hollow glug 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 that might be laughter. You lean over the brink, your shadow merging with the abyss, and whisper the first verse of ballad of salted leaves. The well inhales your words, its echo returning as a merchant's final plea for cheaper camphor. Rain intensifies, flattening your hair into a scholar's mud-stained headdress. You count heartbeats until the next drip, each thud syncing with the steward's retreating footsteps. At 73, a carp breaches the well's surface, its scales tarnished copper. It stares. You stare back, both recognizing the absurdity of this wet vigil. When you blink, it's gone, leaving only concentric rings that write temporary sutras on the water. The urn awaits, its water already growing a skin of dust and lost chances. You dip 2 fingers, breaking the surface tension with a sigh older than pagodas. The taste floods your tongue, iron mold, and the indelible salt of unrecorded lives. Somewhere beyond the courtyard walls, a donkey brays in perfect harmony with the well rope's final creak. Rainwater sloshes from the urn as you shuffle toward the fish pond, your shadow warping against bronze curves. A scrap of silk clings to lily pads, its indigo characters bleeding into the murk. 8 carp swarm the sinking words, nibbling at tribute like overworked clerks, picking at radish cakes. Historians still argue whether Tang rebellion letters hid behind tea shipment records, but this one's dissolving into fish food. The ink spreads a collapsing galaxy in green water. You crouch, knees creaking like dry well ropes, and spear the silk with a bamboo twig. Mandate revoked becomes a waterlogged centipede, its menace blurred beyond recognition. 7th century bureaucrats shared your landlord's handwriting, all splatter and no substance. 3 carp trail your salvage, attempt their puckered mouths, working overtime. Experts think palace fish ponds stored compromised documents, dynastic secrets digested by koi between feedings. Bronze clangs behind you, the ceremonial kettle erupting in steamy coughs. Chrysanthemum petals spiral into the brew, their gold dissolving like gilded lies. Tang nobility drank this to maintain celestial radiance, funded by salt, monopoly profits stripped from peasants. You sip bitterness lingering as carp guts spew ink-stained bubbles. Rebellion brews quieter than jasmine tea, it seems. A raindrop resurrects rebellion in ripples. Fish swarm the phantom word. Their fins shred reflections into pulp. Someone's been feeding them poetry scraps. 13th century manuals claim carp prefer romantic verses over treason. Yours missed the memo. Lightning flashes, freezing the scene into a song-era ink painting. Your afterimage vision reveals the 3rd wife beneath the mulberry, her hairpin trembling like a startled bird. The kettle hisses, approval or warning. As you pocket the ruined silk, secrets age better submerged like forgotten debts and over-fermented pu'erh. Thunder sinks with pond gulps. You count 12 carp, despite local legends, insisting this pond's been fishless since Lushan's revolt. Steamy vapor fogs your face. Naduo once swore chrysanthemum steam reveals liars. You squint. The mist forms a rabbit winking. Your pinky stirs the ink-blotted water. Carp lips brush skin in hungry curiosity. Tang fishkeepers trained koi to tug alarm bells for intruders. Skills lost after the carp riots of 803. The largest fish mouths a shredded character, could be emperor or eggplant. Decay edits all narratives. Rain ebbs, leaving steam that reeks of petrichor and politics. 8th century perfumers bottled this scent, marketed as dragon's hesitation. The urn gurgles, its remaining water whispering sinkhole lullabies. That smudged letter might decree executions, or just a botched spice order. Naduo's ghost hisses. Truth steeps slower than oolong, but noodle stalls sell answers cheap. Your empty cup accuses its dregs, spelling only your hesitation. You drop another chrysanthemum into the boil, petals swirling like miniature war banners. Tang poets penned 18 odes comparing tea foam to cavalry charges. Carp leap, 7 arcs over dying ink, their bellies gilded by stormlight. The courtyard holds its breath, steam thickening into silence. Then the merchant's bastard yells about stolen peppercorns, the moment shattering like a dropped gaywin. Midday heat presses like a diver's hand, blanching the 9 dragons mural into phantom scales. What once snarled in cobalt fury now peers through sunburned plaster, guardian spirits reduced to cataracts. Tang artisans based these on Chen Rong's 9 dragons scroll, meant to scare off evil with sheer excess of claws. Steel purrs nearby, the merchant's mute bodyguard honing his Tao by the shriveled peonies. Each stroke carves a silver thread from the blade, his version of monastery chants. Historians still argue whether Tang-era muteness in bodyguards was spiritual discipline, or just cheaper than gagging talkative hires. Shadows pool beneath his straw hat. You're 90% sure that's where he stores his laughter. Your teacup kisses its saucer, a hairline crack, singing higher than the cicadas. Third wife gifted this set after the mulberry blight her apology for accusing you of stealing fermented plums. The chip tastes of pettiness and inferior clay. Heat hazes warp the courtyard into a kiln's belly. 9 dragons bake into negative space, their hollow eyes tracking your sweating neck. The blade's rhythm hitches, bodyguard tilting the steel to inspect its edge. 8th century Taoist metallurgists swore certain angles could slice moonlight, leaving wounds that only bleed during crescent phases. You check your shadow for phantom cuts. Fingerprints melt into the celadon teapot, its handle hotter than a Dengzhu foundry. Every sip scalds your tongue into compliance. Across the dust, the bodyguard polishes his blade with linseed oil, a scent that curdles the jasmine in your cup. Mid-Tang duelists believed oil steamed from aged cedar coffins granted blades hunger, probably Why, that Tao's edge looks nibbled. A servant scurries past, dropping a bean curd wrapper near the well. The bodyguard flicks his wrist, steel severing the scrap midair. Silk flutters down as two perfect halves. Masterful, you croak, voice cracking like a drought-struck riverbed. His hat dips mute as the lacquer screen he sleeps behind. 9 dragons shed another scale, plaster flakes swirling into your tea. You fish them out, counting 6 jagged pieces before they dissolve. Tang Courtyard murals used oxblood glue mixed with barley wine, sticky enough to survive 3 dynasties, but not today's humidity. The bodyguard resumes scraping steel rhythm, syncing with your headache. Heat mirages dance where the sparrow gate once stood. You squint. Is that the steward's ghost counting taxes, or just a wobbling pocket of air? The Tao's song rises in pitch, its edge probably sharp enough to shave a frog's whisper. Your teacup's crack widens when the kitchen erupts in clanging, a dropped wok, or perhaps the third wife's composure. The blade stills. Bodyguard tilts his head, listening through walls. Cicadas choke mid-shriek. Even the mural's gutted dragons seem to lean in flayed ribs, catching non-existent breezes. Your pulse thrums in the cup's fissure, a red thread winding through porcelain fate. Then a donkey brays in the alley. The spell snaps. Steel resumes its lullaby. Cicadas return to rasping critiques. 9 dragons resume crumbling. You lift the teapot in ironic toast, its shadow cross-hatching the bodyguard's frayed sandal straps. When he lifts his Tao, the reflected glare tattoos a tiny dragon on your wrist, temporary, as every truce here, coolant from the blade, drips onto ants, hauling a lotus seed, their coordinated panic, a perfect mirror of the spice office clerks. You almost mention it until the bodyguard's calloused thumb brushes his blades fuller, a gesture just ambiguous enough to keep your mouth shut. The cup's crack meets its rim now, a hair's breadth from total bifurcation. You cradle it like a dove's skull, warm with the ghosts of 1,000 steepings. Across the courtyard, the bodyguard sheathes his Tao with a wet suck of noise, steel finally sated. Historians might have missed this detail, how midday heat makes even shadows taste metallic. His sandals crunch toward the northern veranda, leaving the mural to bleach in peace. Only when his silhouette melts into shade do you exhale a breath that stirs the last intact dragon's chipped whiskers. The teacup survives, its fissure holding secrets tighter than the merchant's vault. For now, cicadas throttle their song, thick as honey, as bruise-colored clouds gnaw the courtyard's vermilion edges. You press a thumb into the tea table's central crack, its jagged path mirroring the Silk Road's western fork. 8th century Tang bureaucrats used such caravans to transport lunar white porcelain, and spy reports folded into camel feed. Your nail catches a splinter shaped like the Yangtze's third bend, a nick earned when the third wife hurled a candlestick during the mulberry tax dispute. Rain smell muscles through jasmine steam, dampening the cicada drone into wet rasps. Across the courtyard, the steward materializes, bamboo scroll clutched like a newborn. Wax seals glint on its casing, one shaped as a crouching tiger. Tang ministerial couriers perfected wax imprints using melted Buddhist votives. Each sent clues to urgency. This one reeks of hurried beehives. The steward's sandals skid on rain-slicked tiles, his shoulder clipping the 9 dragon's last intact claw. Plaster crumbs snow into your lap. Apologies, elder aunt. His bow exposes 3 silver hairs at the crown, new enough to still shine. Historians still argue whether Tang stewards oiled their scalps daily or just feared baldness more than bandits. He extends the scroll, fingers trembling around its waxed cord. Cicadas hush mid-scream as you prise the seal open. Bamboo slats whisper of drought-struck tributaries and a magistrate's borrowed grain stores. Your thumb rubs a glyph, fresh ink, staining the whorl of your fingerprint. 7th century accountants developed 9 distinct scripts to fudge harvest numbers. But this fool used crane's wings cipher backwards. A raindrop explodes on the tiger seal, transforming its snarl into a watery grimace. The steward flinches, his left eyelid fluttering like a dying moth. You almost pity him. Pre-storm air hums between you, heavy with the musk of unspoken questions. Lightning tattoos the courtyard's ochre walls, freezing the steward mid-blink. His pupils shrink to pinpricks. Thunder follows a celestial abacus, slamming its final bead. The scroll trembles in your grip, its bamboo slats clattering like teeth. Shall I? The steward licks wind-chapped lips. Fetch the merchant's son. Across the courtyard, rainwater sluices down the 9 dragons' flaking spines, their once ferocious snouts now dribbling brown tears. Tang mural restorers mixed oxblood glue with fermented pear sap, sticky enough to withstand monsoons. Until it wasn't. You snap the scroll shut, its cracked tiger seal surrendering with a sigh. Boil water, you murmur, the Chongqing black bricks, and tell kitchen boy when his thieving hands better not touch my iron teapot this time. The steward hesitates, eyeing the scroll like it might sprout fangs. Rain drums his oiled hair into strings of licorice. And the magistrate's request, you flick a cicada carcass off the tea table, its parchment, wings crunching underfoot. 6th century physicians prescribed cicada wing powder for faltering voices. A remedy the steward clearly overindulges. Will send 20 sacks of millet. But the ledger said 20 sacks. Your voice carves the air cleaner than the bodyguard's dow. Half weevilled from last year's southern cellar. The steward's nostrils flare, calculating rebellion versus his daughter's dowry debts. Rain drowns his resolve. He bows again, lower this time, before retreating into the storm's gray veil. Lightning flickers, revealing 3 figures huddled by the broken rainwater vat. The 3rd wife's new maid, the stable master's dimwit nephew, someone wearing a hat that absolutely doesn't belong. You count to 17 in Middle Tang dialect, Their usual bribe-collecting ritual lasts 12 breaths. On 17, they scatter like startled quail. The scroll warps in your hands, humid bamboo softening into a memory of green groves. Thunder groans like a distant tea caravan cresting Jade Gate Pass. Somewhere beyond the compound walls, a donkey brays, its derision syncopated with the rain's percussion. You pour tepid jasmine into the table's central fissure, watch amber liquid vanish into the wood's thirsty veins. 79 infusion stains mark this spot, one for each summer since the courtyard's first kettle sang. The storm leans closer its breath, a promise of rust and renewal. When the steward returns with trembling teacups, you're already humming the bamboo grinder's tune, a melody older than the Tang at its hungriest. He doesn't realize you've pocketed the tiger seal, or that its wax now coats 3 stolen ledger pages in your sleeve. Rain plasters his robe to knobby knees, flesh resembling pruned dragon scales. Lightning forks again, briefly gilding the scroll's exposed characters. They twist like salted caterpillars before darkness reclaims them. Some secrets prefer to drown. Raindrops needle the lotus pond's surface, each impact echoing the tea master's final breath. 12 knots of bamboo kneels before the hearth, sandalwood splinters hissing as flames gnaw their edges. 7th century funerary records mention aristocrats interred with sandalwood logs, though none specified charcoal dust in their tea. His fingers twist 13 prayer knots as smoke braids with storm-wet air. A carp breaches its jaws, snapping at ash flakes, drifting like black snow. Tang apothecaries once prescribed carp scale powder for memory loss. You wonder if it works on grief. Focus through fragrance. 12 murmurs more to the embers than to you. The 4th infusion boils, its foam swallowing sandalwood residue in oily spirals. Historians still debate whether tea masters valued sandalwood scent or just needed something to steady shaking hands. A thunderclap rattles celadon cups on their lacquered tray. You catch the youngest apprentice mouthing numbers, calculating his inheritance if 12 joins the master underground. Rain traces the mulberry ink tally tattooed behind his ear. The sandalwood hisses its last, thin smoke coiling into the character for bamboo. 12's pouring hand falters. 4 droplets splatter the hearthstones. 8th century poets called these widows' tears, though you've seen tougher men weep over burnt oolong. Wind hurries through the courtyard, flipping the tea master's ledger to a page dated 3 monsoons past. His shaky hand recorded a purchase of 27 peacock feather whisks, when everyone knows he stole 28. The kitchen cat bats at a drifting ash clump, mistaking it for moth wings. 12 inhales sharp, his nostrils flaring at the 4th infusion's first steam. 9th century manuals warned against jasmine-scented breath during pour-overs. But he's too green to know better. A hairline crack whispers up the teapot's side, your cue to slide a bronze saucer beneath it. Storms souring the water, You mutter, tracing the pot's fissure with a calloused thumb. Rain plinks into the lotus pond ripples, erasing carp-shaped shadows. Scholars still argue whether Tang hydrologists could truly taste cloudbursts in spring water, or just liked sounding poetic at court. 12's sleeve sweeps embers into a dented censer, each spark outshining his stubble. The third wife's laugh slices through rain from an unseen balcony, her amusement cheaper than last year's peony tea. You count 9 heartbeats before her hairpin clatters to the tiles below. Lightning flash, illuminating 3 figures skulking past the fish pond with bamboo rods. Poachers after the blind musicians, silver-wrapped strings again. The brewmaster's ghost would have boiled their boots in pu'erh, but you just flick a tea stalk at their retreating backs. 12 decants the infusion, ash-flecked liquor swirling like ink in storm runoff. His knuckles whiten around the pot's handle. A single oversteeped leaf clings to the spout, a stubborn student of the old master's boil till bitter philosophy. The youngest apprentice offers honeysuckle sweets, palm upturned like a beggar outside Chang'an's gates. You decline. His sigh smells of unbrushed teeth and apricot pits. Tang dental scrolls recommended chewing pine resin after sweets, advice he'll need before his first kiss. Thunder growls closer now. 12's gaze flicks to the tea master's empty stool. Its cushion still cradles the old man's hip-bone divot. You pretend not to notice him mouthing why 4 infusions. To the steam. Rain cascades off the silk-drying racks, transforming them into waterfall frames. A barn swallow darts through the liquid curtains, snatching ash motes midair. 9th century ornithologists claimed swallows carried messages between tea masters. But that's just what fools tell tourists. 12 rises, robes clinging to knees bony enough to etch jade. His sandalwood-tainted shadow stretches across the 9 dragons' chipped mural. For a heartbeat, the beast's missing claws seem to reach back. The 4th infusion cools in your cup, its surface reflecting a sky heavy with unshed chaos. You sip anyway. Some lessons only ash can teach. Lightning claws at the spice granary's sagging roof, illuminating warped beams crawling with woodless. You huddle under a leaky bamboo awning, the accountant's abacus beads skittering like panicked roaches. 9th century tax scrolls list 47 pepper sacks, equal to 1 bureaucrat's yearly salary. 2 bad 3 sacks sprouted mold last monsoon. Thunder drowns his whisper of missing peppercorns. Rain drums the ledger's warped pages, blurring numbers into black tadpoles. Tang emissaries once paid Central Asian mercenaries in Sichuan peppercorns. You wonder if they demanded hazard pay for tongue numbness. The 5th shipment never breached the mountain pass. He mutters, fingernails digging into rotting ledger cords. A mud moth flutters from his sleeve, its wings dusted with rusty spice. Historians still argue whether pepper truly funded Emperor Xuanzong's concubine harem, or just made accounting errors smell fancy. Hailstone shrapnel pocks the granary's puddled floor, each icy bead rolling like a misplaced abacus piece. The accountant's breath reeks of pickled ginger and panic. 3 sacks, he repeats, staring at your tea-stained sleeve as if it holds answers. You peel a mildewed peppercorn from the wall, crushing it between calluses. Numbing oil bites your skin. Tang apothecaries, rubbed pepper tinctures on frostbitten toes. But you've seen spice smugglers use it to fake leprosy rashes. Wind howls through cracked mortar, spilling pepper dust that stings your eyes. The accountant wheezes through his sleeve, counting each sneeze in the ledger's margins. 65, 66, 67. 8th century meteorologists blamed sneezes on demonic pepper inhalation, never mentioning mold spores. Lightning forks again, fracturing the dark to reveal silhouettes scaling the eastern wall, bandits or tax auditors. The accountant stuffs ledger pages into his mouth like spring rolls. You pity whoever deciphers his spicy confessions. Rainwater swirls at your feet, carrying peppercorns toward a rusted grate. 5 years ago, before the bean weevil infestation, this runoff smelled of saffron and clove. Now it reeks of rust and ground desperation. The accountant fumbles his chopstick stylus, its tip snapping against a cobblestone. 12 years records lost. He wails, ignoring the 6 intact ledgers strapped to his chest. You hand him a teacup to hold. Hail shifts to sleet, needling the awning until it sags like a beggar's shoulders. A pepper sack bursts overhead, dusting your hair with brownish snow. Tang court astronomers claimed pepper prices peaked during comet sightings, though their math smelled of gin-fermented rice wine. The accountant blows his nose on a tax receipt. The 5th shipment fell into Magistrate Liu's pockets. You finish, watching pepper motes settle into his wrinkles. Everyone knows about the governor's 6 pepper-funded concubines and their infamous immunity board game nights. Thunder rattles your back teeth. The accountant flinches, spilling abacus beads into a rat's nest of moldering invoices. His whimper harmonizes with the storm's dying growl. Wind tears the awning free, flinging it toward the mulberry grove's skeletal arms. Cold rain slaps your face. Or are those peppercorns? 10th century poets described this sting as heaven's abacus. You call it bad inventory management. The accountant crouches over his scattered beads, fingers trembling too hard to count. His soaked robes cling like steamed wrappers. You offer the last sip of your cold tea, ash-flavored, but mercifully numbing. Lightning's afterimage burns the sky, freezing the courtyard in bone-white judgment. Somewhere beyond the wall, a donkey brays at the storm. 3 pepper sacks short, 2 conspirators soaked, 1 crack in the granary's foundation, widening with every downpour. Hail peppers the courtyard like celestial sleet, white peonies, exploding into porcelain shrapnel. You duck behind a rain barrel, ice pellets etching divots in lacquered wood. 9th century, Tang brides wore peony crowns to ward off hail demons, judging by the shredded blossoms. It's a part-time gig at best. The merchant's son kneels in the tempest, silk robes plastered to his knees. His new bride's hair swirls with hail strands, each comb stroke scattering ice jewels across cracked tiles. Winter weddings used frozen peonies as dowry tokens, though meltwater often dissolved the bride's leverage by dawn. Her laughter slices through the storm sharp as a kyang tip prying open armor. 17 stones. She crows, plucking hail from her scalp. You've heard caged Mina's sound, less triumphant, cracking sunflower seeds. A peony petal skims your cheek, its edge sharp enough to draw blood. Tang apothecaries prescribed crushed hail for wedding night jitters, dissolved in vinegar and lies. The bride licks red droplets from her thumb, grinning like a fox in a henhouse. The son's comb snags on an ice clump, yanking his bride's head sideways. Gently, she snaps, though her eyes spark brighter than the storm. 8th century marriage contracts included clauses for hair-pulling fines, payable in silver or citrus fruits. Lightning flashes, freezing them in a tableau. Groom mid-apology, bride clutching hailstones, you dodging botanical shrapnel. Historians still argue whether Tang divorce rates spiked during monsoon seasons, or if everyone just blamed the weather. Hail ricochets off a bronze rain gauge, the ping-ping-ping syncing with your pulse. The bride lobs an ice chunk at a sagging peony, beheading it clean. Crimson silk of Chang'an, she declares, naming the cultivar like a general claiming conquered land. You pocket a hail-dented peony petal, its veins mapping forgotten trade routes. Merchants once smuggled silk, worms in hollowed icicles, until a hiccup in Kashgar's climate ruined 6 fortunes. The groom resumes combing, fingers trembling, as he extracts ice from her braids. Each shard clinks into a celadon bowl, forming a tiny glacier on the bridal dais. 8th century ice houses stored winter hail for summer banquets, though melted slush made terrible soup. Wind shifts, hail veers sideways to pummel a crumbling moon gate. The bride snatches a peony-spiked hailstone, tucking it into her sash. For our first argument, she explains, winking at her groom's paling face. Thunder growls, the peony groves, shadows stretching like ink spills. You recall the merchant's 4th concubine, the one who allegedly poisoned her rival with iced lychee syrup. The bride's smile suggests she's heard the tale and taken notes. Ice melts into the groom's sleeves, darkening silk from vermilion to dried blood brown. His comb teeth gleam like miniature swords. Tang poets compared anxious grooms to startled cranes. But this one's all twitching rabbit. The bride rises, hail-studded hair chiming with each step. She crushes a peony underfoot, grinding crimson into cracks between stones. Auspicious, she declares, though the gardeners sobbing from behind the azaleas suggests otherwise. Sunlight spears through retreating clouds, transforming hail melt into 1,000 quicksilver rivulets. The groom stares at his ruined robes, then at his smirking bride, then at the sky calculating alimony odds. You sip cold tea from a chipped cup, bitterness cut by the iron tang of recent rain. Somewhere beyond the wall, a vendor hawks hail-damaged peonies at half price. The bride flicks an ice shard into the fish pond, its splash echoing like a cash box slamming shut. Rainwater still beads your sleeves as the gate creaks, its iron hinges singing a rusty protest. The monk's staff strikes cracked flagstones, 5 notches glinting even in this bruised light. Tang emperors welcomed Nestorian Christians and Zoroastrians at their courts, but this wanderer smells of older gods. His straw sandals squelch with each step, leaving frog spawn imprints in the mud. The staff's head rattles, 9 iron rings forged from melted temple bells. 7th century monks used badger fat to waterproof their robes, though this one's hem drips defiance instead. Milk defeats bitterness, he rasps, accepting your offered cup. The pu'erh swirls cloudy under goat's milk curds, a drink Caravan guards favored on the northern route. Historians still argue whether Tang tea masters considered dairy barbaric or just kept quiet for imperial tax breaks. His thumbnail traces a notch near the staff's midpoint. Daji's tomb, he mutters, as if that explains the scarred iron. Legend claims fox spirits fled westward after the Zhou conquest, but monsoon puddles make poor mirrors for demon checking. The monk's chant vibrates your molars, a low drone syncing with distant thunder. He alternates between Sanskrit and what might be Sogdian curses, each syllable bending the steam from your cup. Tang officials recorded rain summoning foreigners in provincial logs, always listed below salt tax quotas. You note 3 flecks of gold in his beard, probably fool's gold, given the crumbling courtyard. His kettle clanks, a dented thing stuffed with wilted chrysanthemums and wolfberry twigs. 8th century herbalists prescribed wolfberry for night-seeing blindness, though pissing neon yellow scared off most patients. A ring slips from his staff, rolling toward the fish pond. Leave it, he grunts, sipping pu'erh as carp nibble the iron circle. Some monks threaded rings through their cheeks during fasting months, but you're not paid enough to ask. Goat milk clings to his upper lip like a ghostly mustache. He wipes it with a sleeve embroidered with inverted swastikas, the old Buddhist symbol, not the later horror. Silk Road mercenaries tattooed swastikas on their horses' haunches, claiming it made steeds run clockwise around chaos. The monk plucks a louse from his collar, flicks it into your tea. Protein, he deadpans, though his eye twitches with suppressed mischief. You mentally add insect garnish to the growing list of why I miss Luyang. His staff tip traces characters in the mud, swirls collapsing under rain's persistent fingers. The brew steeps darker, goat curds forming archipelagos in the storm-scented dusk. Tang poets wrote 83 odes to pu'erh, but 0 about cleaning monastic lice from yixing teapots. Thunder growls, he startles like a cat caught filching altar wine. The recovered ring slips back onto his staff with a click that echoes too precisely. You pretend not to see his shaking hands. Salvaged bells always remember their first crack. He departs as shadows pool in the gate's footprint, staff ringing against stones like a flawed metronome. Your teacup holds a final sip, swirling with milk and doubt. Somewhere beyond the wall, a nanny goat bleats its verdict on Tang-era hospitality. Dusk bleeds through paper lanterns, cranes frozen mid-flight in translucent silence. Osmanthus oil clings to your eyelids, the third wife's arrival, announced by scent before sound. Historians confirm Tang noblewomen spent fortunes on Arabian perfumes, but this reek of marinated flowers suggests a cheaper obsession. Her slippers whisper against moss-cracked tiles, each step calibrated to make jade bracelets shiver. You count 3 unopened letters in her grip, mulberry paper, warped by humidity. The top seal bears Kashgar's coiled dragon emblem, Silk Road hub turned rumor mill. Steward says they arrived weeks ago. She murmurs, fingernails picking at wax imprints. Like dead moths in a dowry chest, the analogy lands with practiced precision. Lotus-Broken-Silence didn't earn her court name through shyness. Lantern light carves shadows beneath her cheekbones, a geography more treacherous than the Pamir passes. 12% of Tang-era letters survived the centuries, mostly tax receipts and complaints about camel lice. These folded secrets might have been different. She fans the letters like playing cards, their edges flutter like trapped sparrows. Men write prettier lies during sandstorms, a joke, but her throat tightens around the words. You inhale tea steam to counter her perfume, oolong and osmanthus wrestling in your sinuses. One envelope splits, revealing a charcoal sketch of galloping horses. Their legs stretch unnaturally long, Silk Road caravans racing mirages. 7th century artists pioneered exaggerated perspectives to show speed, or maybe just sucked at drawing hooves. The third wife tucks the drawing away too fast. You've tasted pu'erh near Cotton's jade mines. Her voice veers crystalline, distracting from the tremor in her wrist. You nod, recalling brick tea traded for nephrite amulets and hangovers. Then you know how letters curdle. She presses a sealed envelope into your palm. The paper feels feverish. Kashgarian officials used fermented mares, milk as adhesive, which explains the fungal smell. And the guilt, her hairpin chimes, 16 copper leaves vibrating as she leans closer. Burn it, brew it, bathe in it. The options thud between you like overripe plums. Tang censors preferred burning, charcoal being easier to read than intent. Distant laughter spills from the kitchens, a servant's mockery, or a hiccup of wind. The third wife freezes, a crane sensing poisoned rice. You slip the letter into your sleeve, its edge cuts like a poorly filed fingernail. She exhales, releasing a cloud of osmanthus tinged with fermented ginger. 3 dynasties built Kashgar's walls, but termites always start in the rafters. A proverb or a confession, her slippers retreat through moonbeam alleys, scent lingering like a bargained curse. The lantern closest to you gutters, paper crane singeing its wings. Historians still argue whether unopened meant untouched or simply unanswerable. You peel the seal with a thumbnail. Tonight's tea already bitter enough without mystery herbs. Inside, 7 lines in desperate grass script. The ink blurs where raindrops or tears fell. A plea for gunpowder. A lover's haiku. You'll never know. The third wife's perfume floods your nostrils, sudden and violent. Wrong sleeve. She hisses, plucking the letter with fingers colder than Turkic winters. Her laugh mirrors the lantern's death rattle. Naughty, Tang law imposed flogging for reading others' mail. But the punishment for nearly reading it remains deliciously undefined. She dissolves into shadow, taking the crane-filled light with her. Your tea has gone cold, the cup's rim imprinted with osmanthus-scented smears. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, a donkey brays its approval of your bad life choices. Fireflies blink into existence, living sparks against the mulberry's skeletal branches. Their light pulses like startled eyelids, nature's own semaphore code. Tang nobility once kept glowworms in jade cages as living lanterns. These wild specks mock such extravagance. The steward's youngest appears, skirts smudged with tree sap and rebellion. She cradles mooncake crumbs in cupped palms, arranged to mirror the 7 chariots constellation. 9th century poets swore crumbs could bribe star spirits, but her version skews 3 degrees north. Historians still argue whether mooncakes first served as military rations, edible encryption for rebel messages. Auntie says dead stars taste like moldy almonds. She declares, smearing a Crumses North Star across your sleeve. Camphor wafts from her cuffs, the scent of smuggled moth repellent or stolen apothecary visits. You resist pointing out the real North Stars, currently behind the eastern latrine. Her pinky finger hovers over the crumbly plow, a shaky reconstruction. Cook sneezed during the mid-autumn kneading. That's why heaven's map cracked. The logic feels airtight, like explanations for why Tang emperors blamed eclipses on poorly made dumplings. She licks Ursa Major off her palm, sugar and dust becoming astrology. 16th century monks wrote of celestial feasts to please wandering souls. But crumbs down the collar likely wasn't part of the ritual. Her grin suggests intentional heresy, dimples deeper than Lu Yong's forgotten granaries. The mulberry shudders, fireflies momentarily outlining a face in its hollow. Just the steward's third cousin napping off rice wine, probably. They say Emperor Xuanzong's concubine danced with fireflies in her hair. You offer, ignoring how the tree's bark now resembles cremation scrolls. Fireflies die faster that way. She counters, crushing the crumb moon between molars. True, Tang chronicles note court ladies doing bugs to death by dawn. She spits a sesame seed onto your shoe, perfectly simulating a comet's trajectory. Distant clanging interrupts, the brewmaster hunting his stolen copper scales. The girl freezes, crumbs cascading from her sleeves like miniature meteor showers. Camphor intensifies as she presses a sticky Pleiades cluster into your hand for luck against shadow eaters. She whispers, though whether it's threat or gift remains deliciously unclear. Her escape route takes her through the herb gardens, crushed mint, and disobedience lingering in her wake. The remaining crumbs form a lopsided Milky Way on the bench, already dissolving under ant assaults. You pocket 3 stars anyway. Tax collectors of destiny can bill you later. Fireflies blink out one by one, extinguished by some cosmic snuffer. The mulberry groans, just wind, just wood, just imagination's price for moonlit conspiracies. Your palm itches where constellation grease met skin, or maybe that's just anticipation of the steward's wrath come morning. A shrill cry splits the air, part iron nail on stone, part widow's final sigh. The northern wall shivers, its cracks suddenly gaping like fox muzzles. Your spine remembers before your mind does. That sound haunted Tang tribute caravans crossing the Gobi. The brewmaster jerks, his 4th infusion explodes across the hearthstones. Black streams swallow sandalwood ash, liquid shadows hungry for proof of order. 18th century tax records list 700 fox pelts paid annually. Yet, tonight's ghost pelt needs no silver tally. Hyuli Jing hisses the steward's 3rd wife, her perfume gone sharp with osmanthus panic. Ming Dynasty scrolls depicted fox spirits brewing poison in teapots. But Tang poets knew their true currency was stolen time. Your toe nudges the overturned cup, still warm with stolen infusions. Dust motes swirl where the fox's cry linger, forming 9-tailed silhouettes against moon-washed tiles. Eunuchs once burned birch bark to repel shapeshifters. Too bad the steward skimped on firewood this winter. The brewmaster wipes his brow, quicksilver droplets staining his already tragic sleeves. You inhale memory, not steam now, but musk and frozen steps. That last fox tribute had arrived, maggot-triddled, fur stinking of betrayal and steppe grass. The emperor's laughter cracked icicles off palace eaves, but his tax collectors never grasped frostbite arithmetic. A paw print blooms in spilled tea 3-toed, tipped with cinnabar claws. 17th century healers prescribed fox forehead powder for melancholia. Though whether it cured rulers or poisoned rivals remains delightfully murky. The steward's daughter appears, crushed fireflies staining her hemline celestial chartreuse. Grandmother says fox tongues can untie knots. She whispers, eyeing the brewmaster's trembling hands. True Tang caravans used vixen saliva to loosen frozen saddle straps. Her grin suggests darker applications, perhaps involving the merchant's missing shipping ledgers. Wind riffles your collar, carrying the musk again. Closer now. 13 laborers died transporting that final putrid tribute. Their names now just brush strokes in some forgotten memorial scroll. The brewmaster recovers, his whisk clattering like a novice's first tea duel. Shadows deepen under the moon gate, suggesting pointed ears, liquid shoulders, a grin wider than the Yangtze. Historians still argue whether fox-skin taxes aimed to appease spirits or bankrupt troublesome northern provinces. You pick ash from your sleeve, each flake a miniature funeral banner. The third wife mutters sutras through jasmine petals, her piety undercut by how fast she retreats. 8th century fox-killing manuals recommended wolfsbane and blindfolds. Yet here you stand, bare-eyed and weaponless. A whisker brushes your ankle, or maybe just a frayed hemp rope's caress. Dawn leeches the courtyard's tension, reducing demons to chicken scratches in the dust. The steward arrives, counting tea-stained paw prints with fiscal despair. 43, he croaks, though whether tallying marks or missing silver tails is his usual math. You pocket a cinnabar-tinted pebble, maybe a fox's plaything, maybe a broker's lost tooth. The brewmaster's 5th infusion steams innocently, its scent promising normalcy, or perhaps the calm before the next shape-shifted storm. Somewhere beyond the wall, 9 tails flick, plotting tribute ratios even the emperor's greed couldn't imagine. Silk moths escape your sleeve, their wings shredding into mist as the merchant materializes. His abacus beads aren't jade or ivory, just condensation clinging to air. You've seen Tang tomb murals of ledger ghosts, but none smelled of decaying peach blossoms and camel dung. A bead drops, it evaporates before staining the limestone. 39, he rasps, pancreas-hot breath fogging your ear. Trade logs confirm 39 camels vanished en route to Samarkand in 800, and 9 sea swallowed by dunes or bandits. The ghost's fingers twitch, currency conversions rotting his nail beds. Lost 7, he wheezes, counting poisoned guards or poisoned teas. His ledger floats, ink bleeding into mist like drunk tadpoles. Northern Qi Dynasty accountants marked suspicious deaths with crimson blotches. But this phantom prefers self-updating corruption. A bead plinks against your collar cold as a bride's rejected dowry. His robes ripple, revealing abacus cords looped like a Hangzhou hangman's knot. Historians still argue whether spectral decimals fueled Tang tax systems or just haunted overworked bureaucrats into early graves. He exhales numbers: 423, 11, 9006, each digit warping the steam from your abandoned tea. The brewmaster's famous iron goddess, Oolong, cools, its tannins curdling into something that winks from the cup. Mist strings snag your wrist, dragging fingers toward phantom calculations. 8th century silk road guards carried abacuses for toll negotiations. But you're pretty sure dead men don't give receipts. 7 beads detach, forming the character for debt in Song Dynasty shorthand. Your elbow jars the table, tea sloshes into a sticky 8. His pupils narrow, abacus rattling like a governor auditing village turnips. Tang law fined citizens for accidental ink spills. But you're just grateful he can't manifest a magistrate's bamboo rod. A bead solidifies briefly, imprinting 34% annual interest on your palm. The number glows, then fades like a courtesan's promise. Qing Dynasty pawnshops used foxblood ink for unrecoverable loans. But this ghost needs no ink. His breath hisses, 79 ingots, 80, 79 maths hard when dead, huh? You mutter, instantly regretting it. Mist hardens into a tally stick, smacking your shin. 12th century Mongolian tax collectors did worse for sass. But you swear the ghost smirks. Transparent beads outline a camel caravan, 39 shadows missing. One phantom camel spits at you, because even in death, they're jerks. You flick a tea leaf, it passes through the beast to land on your shoe. 3 beads form the Shanghainese symbol for interest, 10 for compounded. A Tang merchant's contract floats by its red seals dissolving into moths. Scholars found Kangchu ledgers near Malacca, where tea debts outlived dynasties. But ghost math needs no parchment. The abacus implodes, beads scattering into 4 cardinal directions. Each one sings as it flees middle C, D sharp, pure accountant's despair. Your teacup trembles, then explodes into 72 porcelain wasps. Silence. Dawn licks the courtyard, exposing dew pretending to be abacus beads. The ghost's final breath still stains the air, a smokeless 9 dissolving like sugar in rain. Only then do you notice your tea's ice cold. Yet your tongue tastes of oversteeped betrayal and 7 camels worth of regret. Dawn cracks over the courtyard like an egg yolk on cobblestones, gold oozing across the shattered rainwater vat. 39 ivory beads from the accountant's exploded abacus decorate the moss, each spinning 7 times clockwise before settling. You've seen Tang tax records chronicle the 2 taxes system of 780 CE, but none mention runaway calculus fleeing through morning dew. Cold oolong bleeds across the bamboo scroll characters swimming to the surface like carp after crumbs. The verdict emerges in fermented tea patterns, black glyphs rearranging as you breathe. 7th century magistrates used wine for divination. But this reeks of bureaucrats getting creative with leftover leaves. Your pinky catches a coiled symbol, 8 loops too tight for any living scribe's hand. Deficit, murmurs the steward's shadow, materializing with yesterday's rice, clinging to his beard. His index finger splits the spill, creating tributaries that spell 42 missing sacks in par stains. Tang granaries stored rice in bamboo containers coated with ox blood, though you're pretty sure this counts as workplace misconduct. A bead rolls downhill, launching itself into the vat's rusted belly. 9 more follow, suicidal math, seeking watery graves. You half expect a tax collector's ghost to invoice you for lost state property. The steward's sandal crushes a bead, It squeals like a stepped-on mouse before disintegrating. Historians still argue whether Tang officials augmented taxes with voluntary gift quotas, or just bullied peasants into donating their last radish. The scroll's tea stains coagulate into percentages: 73% loyalty discount, 18% misplaced pepper surcharge. Your tongue finds a stray leaf, bitterness, cut with ink, and bureaucratic meddling. Moss creeps over the vat's fracture, each emerald thread stitching porcelain like a physician's sutures. You've read 8th century manuals on ceramic repair using lacquered rice paste, but this reeks of desperation and spores. The steward licks his cracked lips, counting beads like a monk, tallying prayer knots. 46, he croaks, or 42 in the verdict. He glares, a caterpillar dropping from his sleeve into the oolong puddle. 4, for operational expenses. 3 beads whiz past your ear, ricocheting off a vermilion pillar. Tang granary guards wore silk earplugs during rice shipments to avoid temptation. Though you doubt plugs would help now, the scroll trembles, glyphs rearranging into a crude map of the courtyard's mouse holes. 1 bead balances on the vat's rim, glowing like a mini comet. 8th century astronomers recorded guest stars brighter than Venus. This just winks at you before diving into shadow. The steward's abacus cord snakes through gravel, forming a noose around a drowsy earthworm. Interest accrues at dawn. He recites, knotting the cord with sacerdotal precision. Your thumbnail digs tea stains, revealing microscopic numerals beneath the verdict. Someone's scribbled 96 sandalwood bribes in vermilion, then crossed it out with what looks like chicken blood. A bead nestles in your left sandal, pulsing like a second heartbeat. Tang physicians diagnosed financial anxiety as abacus palpitations, treatable with powdered jade and fermented mare's milk. You kick it toward the steward, watch it burrow into his grimy hem like a metallic parasite. The scroll curls inward, its verdict dissolving into 84 incoherent strokes. Maybe it's disgusted by your accounting, or just reacting to the steward's breath. He's humming a tax collection ditty, now off-key and smelling of yesterday's garlic. Your toe connects with the vat. A porcelain shard skitters into worm-rich soil. 5 beads give chase, territorial math, defending their territory. Historians found Sui Dynasty tax tokens in Xi'an sewers, still gleaming after 14 centuries of shit. This lot just rattles pathetically. The steward freezes, tugging his earlobe thrice. A bead floats midair, vibrating at the frequency of bureaucratic panic. You brace for another lecture on deficit management, but he just pokes the anomaly. It bursts, showering you in abacus dust that tastes of scorched licorice and regret. Light bleaches the courtyard white, giving the broken vat halo delusions. Its remaining shards glow, each crack mapping trade routes to dead cities. That's when you see it, tiny tea-stained letters along the fracture. Owe everything, owe nothing. The steward's sandal grinds the words into the moss. A single bead winks up from the green, good as any period on any Tang Dynasty invoice. Thunder groans through sagging roof tiles, the courtyard vibrating like an overtuned pipa string. You kneel among mulberry leaves, their edges chewed into lace by unseen jaws. That's when the third wife parts the bead curtain, her wedding sash unraveling like a silk viper's mold. 780 silk worms churn in bamboo trays beneath you, each mandible click echoing the rain's staccato. Tang Dynasty workshops employed child laborers to count cocoons. But this midnight tally feels more confession than commerce. Her sash stretches 13 feet, a river of phoenix embroidery drowning in shadow. They prefer storms, she murmurs, fingering a moth-eaten knot. 8th century sericulture manuals advised playing flute music to calm silkworms. These critters bang their heads like drunk poets at a lute contest. A worm drops onto your knee, its body pulsing green-white as it imitates a jade bead. You spot the hidden stitchwork, 34 minuscule Buddhas embroidered along the sash's inner fold. Historians still argue whether Tang noblewomen wove secret prayers into bridal garments or just hid snacks from their mothers-in-law. Lightning forks illuminating 780 worms arching in unison like a living abacus. The third wife's hairpin scrapes the floor, counting each worm with metallic ticks. 1442-98. Her rhythm falters as thunder shakes the mortar. 5 worms tumble onto the sash, gnawing through an embroidered lotus like it's lunch. 79. You correct, watching a plump escapee vanish into her sleeve. She freezes, her perfume of decayed rose petals sharpening. Tang silk brokers used frozen mulberry leaves to soothe overactive worms. But this one's probably writing its memoirs in there. Rain sluices through the ceiling, transforming the bamboo trays into miniature canals. The sash absorbs moisture, swelling into a phantom bride between you. 13 feet of wet silk could drown a man or bury a household's secrets. Your pinky brushes an embroidered phoenix eye. It pulses once, warm as living flesh. Worms boil over tray edges, a silken tsunami fleeing the downpour. You salvage 3 stragglers, their bodies coiling around your thumb. L-I-K, Chinese letter, jade bracelets. The third wife hisses something about Northern Gate taxes, her sash now festooned with half-digested mulberry confetti. A thunderclap rattles teacups on distant shelves, their chimes counting backwards from 100. 79 worms float past in a puddle, doggy paddling toward the cracked moon gate. Sericulture records from Chang'an mention rain-born silk, harvested from drenched cocoons. But you're pretty sure this counts as forced retirement. Her hairpin stabs the sash, pinning it to rotted floorboards. The embroidered phoenix bleeds indigo dye, or maybe that's just lightning's strobe effect. You blink, and the worms freeze mid-crawl, posture perfect as terracotta army footmen. 780, she announces, voice drowned by the monsoon's roar. The number lingers, too round, too neat. Tang tax assessors rounded fractions up, always up. You glance at the SKP in her sleeve, its tiny jaw working through brocade. When the thunder pauses, you hear it. 781. She doesn't flinch, just rips the hairpin sideways. The sash shreds, releasing 13 feet of trapped storm wind. It slaps the mulberry trays, sending worms airborne like clumsy constellations. 3 land in your hair, 4 in the third wife's unfurled sleeves, 5 in a puddle forming the character for betrayal. Lightning dies. Darkness swallows the final count, along with the extra worm's tiny chewing sounds. Charcoal dust coats your tongue as the refugee painter scratches his masterpiece across rice paper, each stroke capturing collapsing eaves with brutal economy. His left hand lacks 3 fingers, stumps polished smooth as river stones by Samarkand's frost. You remember Tang caravans hauling lapis lazuli from Afghan mines. But no merchant ever shipped frozen digits back along the Silk Road. He gestures with his brush hand, a quirk that splatters ink resembling faraway mountains. Some medieval travelers swore frostbitten limbs could predict storms, though his trembling strokes suggest arthritis over prophecy. You offer tea sweetened with locust honey, a treacly gold that clings to the cup like liquid amber. They ate my art first, he rasps, nodding at his maimed hand. His sketch reveals the courtyard's decay in motion. Tiles sliding like dragon scales, the mulberry tree's roots devouring silver ingots from section 25. Historians still argue whether locust honey fueled Tang armies or just masked the taste of sawdust bread. A wasp dives into your cup, its wings dissolving into the honey's embrace. He paints its death throes with obsessive detail, 6 legs flailing in syrup. You mention the third wife's unraveled sash from last night's storm, how its silk threads now bind broken roof tiles. Northern Way Dynasty. He grunts, dabbing charcoal over the mulberry's cancer-blackened trunk. Emperors buried dissenters under mulberries to feed silkworms, efficient recycling. The wasp sinks, its thorax becoming a miniature, inkstone in the honey. You count his remaining fingers against the brush handle. A 7-stroke grip, defying calligraphy manuals. Lightning flashes, revealing his sketch's hidden layer. Spectral merchants hauling coffins shaped like tea chests. Locust honey clogs your throat, sweetness undercut by the iron tang of recent rain. He licks charcoal dust off his stumps, a habit leaving gray smears on his lips. Your reflection warps in the honey jar features, blending with the drowning wasp. Some 9th century poets claimed purified locust honey could reveal one's death date, but you're guessing that required better digestion. His brush flicks, capturing your teacup mid-crack. The sound echoes 3 breaths late, porcelain, surrendering to hairline fractures. You sip carefully, avoiding the wasp's antennae drifting near the rim. He sketches your hesitation, immortalizing the moment before the cup breaks fully in section 30. Thunder rumbles, a lazy afterthought to last night's storm. The painter's missing fingers twitch against his scraggly beard, tracing phantom brushstrokes only he can see. Shadows from his sketch writhe across the courtyard, ink monsters dancing to the mulberry leaves' death rattle. Honey thickens in the cooling tea, congealing around yesterday's chaos. You swirl the cup, watching locust legs orbit like planetary debris. His sketch completes itself now, lines bleeding through paper to tattoo the warped floorboards. When the drizzle resumes, you realize he's painting with rainwater and ash. The courtyard collapses faster under his brush, time itself unraveling where his missing fingers once gripped charcoal. A final stroke, and the wasp floats belly up in your cup, its honeyed tomb reflecting a perfectly intact courtyard that no longer exists. The kitchen's iron grate presses cold against your forehead, rough metal imprinting dragon scales on your skin. Below, the brewmaster's apprentice kneels among shards of yixing clay, his fingers bloody from gathering fragments still steaming with oolong. Centuries later, collectors will duel over unbroken pots like this one. But tonight's relic just stains the flagstones pu'erh black. 60 days with nightsoul buckets, hisses a scullery maid her whisper, carving through the humid air. She snaps a jasmine stem between her teeth, its blossoms sagging like surrendered flags. Some Tang scholars claimed unglazed teapots absorbed drinkers' secrets. But this kid's only crime is butterfingers and bad timing. You watch him fit 2 shards together, a puzzle missing 19 pieces. His left eyebrow twitches, a tick historians will later misinterpret as artistic temperament in excavated scrolls. The brewmaster's shadow looms, a paper-cut silhouette outlined by dying hearthlight. 60 years of pouring taiguinian have curved his spine into a perfect spout. Wilted jasmine petals swirl in your cup, their scent fading into the tang of broken pottery. The maid flicks a persimmon seed at the apprentice. It bounces off his scalp with a satisfying talk. Yixing clay hardens darker near underground iron veins. She mutters, "My third uncle swore his teapot whispered rebel songs during the Lushan rebellion." You count 7 irregular drips from a leaking barrel, each drop echoing the apprentice's shaky breaths. His reconstruction attempt resembles a tea-drunk centipede, legs going every direction but forwards. The brewmaster clears his throat, a sound like bricks sliding in a mudslide. Historians still argue whether Tang tea masters truly discarded apprentices for broken pots, or just enjoyed theatrical punishments. A cockroach navigates the shards, antennae mapping terrain more skillfully than the kid's trembling hands. Your jasmine infusion now tastes like licking a wet stamp. Floral notes drowned in clay residue. Some fringe scrolls suggest drinking from broken vessels, invited ancestral ghosts. But you're guessing that required more ceremonial flair than this crumbly fiasco. The maid mimics the brewmaster's limp, a spot-on parody of his mortar and pestle gait. Her laughter dies as he pivots suddenly, linen sleeves snapping like war banners. Cobwebs tremble in the rafters, sending ash snowflakes onto the apprentice's misguided pottery mosaic. Start with the slops bucket, rumbles the brewmaster, pointing to a reeking vessel taller than the boy. Its bamboo handle grooves tell stories of 37 previous offenders. You pocket a clay fragment, edges still warm from its final pour. Maybe future archaeologists will call this a ritual shard, representing Tang socio-ceramic hierarchies. Dawn bleeds through rice paper windows, striping the disaster zone in tiger fur hues. The apprentice's first chamber pot clangs against stone, a discordant note in the kitchen's morning symphony. Your teacup surrenders its last petal, a translucent sail adrift in the dregs. As you exit, the maid slips the kid a persimmon slice, sticky sweetness defying the stench of his new vocation. Her kindness leaves honeyed fingerprints on his dumpling sleeve, and possibly spawns an 8th century urban legend about fruit-based redemption arcs. Somewhere beneath your sandal, a pottery shard crumbles to dust, its iron-rich clay already dreaming of becoming someone else's masterpiece. War drums throb through the mountain passes, their vibrations warping the sunset into rippled bronze. You crush dried peach pits with a mortar, each crack releasing musty sweetness, like opening a grandmother's cedar hope chest. The merchant's eldest son sharpens his ancestral sword, steel teeth shaving iron into crimson dust. Historians still argue whether Tang soldiers brewed peach pits during sieges for sustenance, or just to smell something besides blood. His whetstone's screech harmonizes with distant thunder, nature's own battle preparation. You sift powdered pits through a bamboo sieve, the gray grains resembling ash from a burned library. 8th century military scrolls mention peach kernels in emergency rations, but none explain why your brew tastes like cheated hope. Dried persimmon skins flutter into your mortar, added less for flavor than stubbornness. The blade's rhythm hitches, a knuckle nicked by careless focus. Blood beads bloom across the whetstone, becoming miniature mirrors, reflecting war's approach. Some fringe Tang apothecaries claimed peach pit tea could turn soldiers invisible, which explains why no recipes survived testing. You steep the gritty powder in rainwater from the fractured vat, its edges still jagged from Section 19's abacus explosion. Steam coils into shapes resembling fleeing villagers, or maybe just your eyelids getting heavy. The sun tests his blade on a mulberry branch, sap oozing slower than the blood it'll soon meet. THREE, Chinese letter, SCURRY, passed with bolts of undyed hemp bandage production, outpacing tea service. Your first sip coats your tongue in bitterness, the aftertaste suggesting 1,000 bureaucrats' broken promises. A wasp drowns in the cup, its abdomen convulsing in what might be interpretive dance. Peach pit's neutralized plague miasmas, declares the steward's nephew, smearing ink across requisition scrolls. His quill splits mid-sentence, splattering cavalry horses into cavalry horrors. You strain the tea through silk stolen from Lotus-Broken-Silence's abandoned loom. The blade's edge now parts falling hairs, a silent death promised with each stroke. Your second sip unlocks subtler notes, self-delusion pantry moths, and a faint callback to that questionable camel milk pu'erh from section 14. The drums multiply their pulses, synchronizing with the blacksmith's hammer 3 li west. A recruit practices spear thrusts against the moon gates, shadow his grunts, punctuating each imagined kill. You pocket a peach pit carved with crude luck charms, because why not hedge your spiritual bets? The merchant's ghost materializes, missed fingers flinching from the blades, newly hungry glint. By the third cup, even the wasp carcass starts looking steepable. The sun sheathes his sword, the click final as a tomb seal. His bride appears with a lacquered box of dried crickets, siege protein wagering against peach pit pessimism. Midnight finds you scrubbing mortar residue with charred mulberry twigs. Somewhere beyond the mountains, a general's tea servant likely crunches the same bitter kernels, dreaming of jasmine blossoms and peace treaties written in spilled oolong. The drums pause, a breath held too long, before roaring twice as loud. Twilight stains the courtyard's cracked moon gate, its arch now resembling a predator's slack jaw. War drums dissolved into cicada static hours ago, leaving your ears ringing with phantom pulses. You kneel beside the fish pond, its surface oiled by decaying lotus pads, and count 7 surviving carp. Their gaping mouths shape silent pleas, or maybe they're just hungry. A rasping hum slices through dusk's lethargy. A beggar woman materializes at the gate. Her remaining eye gleams wet as a half-peeled lychee, the absent one reflecting courtyard ruins in its hollow. She plucks a pipa, missing 3 strings, though her thumb bleeds from the 4th. Tea ships drown with their holds full of song. She croons, a melody older than the Tang's maritime trade routes. Scholars still debate whether 8th century tea exports sank due to monsoon fury or imperial sabotage against rebellious coastal governors. The surviving carp breach in unison, their scales mimicking celadon shards from section 5's shattered cup. Her ballad mentions Hainan's coral reefs, swallowing 16 crews in a single storm. You catch the stench of jasmine under her wrought wool robes, pomander sachets stolen from drowned merchants' corpses. Her probing toe disturbs the fish pond, releasing bubbles that pop with whispered numerals. Memories surface of section 6's salt-tinged pu'erh, the taste lingering like a tongue ulcer. You palm 2 jasmine buds from your sleeve's hidden pocket, their scent clashing with her decaying teeth. Some Tang apothecaries swore jasmine smoke repelled river ghosts. Not that you believe in such nonsense. She intercepts the offering, fingernails carving crescent moons into your wrist. The buds disappear into her mouth with a crunch violent as ice splitting Lake Dongting's winter crust. Her grunt suggests approval or indigestion. They still float, those tea chests. She hisses, spitting a petal onto your mud-caked hem, anchored to dead men's vows. The pipa's lone string snaps, recoiling like a scorpion's tail. You blink, she's gone. Only footprints remain, each toe print cradling a jasmine petal. Crickets resume their monotonous ledger of night. 3 carp float belly up by dawn, their eyes clouding into twin voids, mirroring your own exhaustion. The steward's daughter kneels beside you later, plucking petals from scum with bratty precision. Her hair reeks of camphor stolen from Section 16's forbidden stash. Grandmother taught me dead fish rise when ghosts walk, she declares, snapping a stem between molars. You say nothing. The jasmine in your sleeve feels heavier now, like swallowed anchor chains. Somewhere beyond the mountains, a tea ship's skeleton groans, its cargo hold blooming with jasmine roots that bind sailors' bones into eternal service. Rainwater sluices through the mulberry tree's fissures, exposing glints that shame the anemic moon. You kneel in slurry, mud seeping through your hem's once imperial embroidery, and fish out a tarnished ingot. Its weight feels obscene, like robbing a grave mid-seance. Historians still argue whether Tang merchants buried silver to dodge bandits, or the emperor's tax collectors. The steward arrives, abacus beads tangled in his beard like malignant fruit. He counts aloud in the croaking dialect of Luyong's mint masters. 73, no, 74. His thumb rubs a half-erased tally mark tattooed on his wrist. Did you know Tang accountants often inked their arms with payment deadlines? Convenient. Until monsoon sweat blurred the numbers. Lightning forks, momentarily branding the hoard's grotesque glow onto your retinas. 79. Ingots protrude like molars from the tree's pulpy gums. The steward's trembling brush records each number, though his ledger pages disintegrate faster than he can write. You pocket a fallen leaf veined with silver residue, souvenir or future evidence. The night herons mock us, he hisses as 2 slate-gray birds alight on the crumbling wall. Their guttural quarks echo the steward's coughs. Folklore claims these birds materialize where liars bury treasure, but that's peasant superstition. Obviously, the steward's inkwell overflows, indigo rivulets mapping his despair across moss-caked stones. His 6th recount hits 77 before rainwater dissolves the numerals. The missing 2 ingots taunt him, or perhaps they never existed. You press a palm against the tree's split trunk, feeling reverberations from the merchant's ghost. His laughter emerges as termites pouring from the woodwork. Silver wasn't standard currency. Then most transactions used bolts of silk or strings of coins. But rebels preferred precious metals easier to smuggle than clinking copper. The steward's sleeve snags on a rusted nail, spilling abacus beads into the mud. They float like eggs in a toxic nest. One heron spears a bead midair, its beak clicking with accountant precision. The steward hurls his inkstone in retaliation, a comedic overreaction ending in a sodden splat. The bird regurgitates the bead with a noise resembling bureaucratic disdain. Your damp socks chafe, yet you can't look away. 3 indentations near the tree's roots suggest more ingots sank into the groundwater. Archaeologists found similar depressions near a Chang'an canal in the 90s, filled with Tang-era nails and buyer's remorse. The steward's tally now reads 60, but his brush tip keeps snapping like rotten celery. Dawn arrives, pallid light transmuting silver to lead. The herons depart in a flurry of spiteful wingbeats. Only 79 hollows remain, though no one will agree on what they once held. The steward collapses against the tree, his sobs synchronizing with distant hammers at the counterfeiter's market. Termites carry away his ledger's pulp, tiny scribes editing history. Rainwater puddles around your toes, each ripple eroding the steward's abandoned abacus into memory. The cracked clay beneath your feet feels suspiciously smooth until you crouch and scrape away sludge with a fingernail. Glazed characters emerge, Lotus-Broken-Silences, handwriting preserved in reverse beneath the mud's thin skin. You found her rebellion. Tang noblewomen often composed poetry on silk or rice paper, but this, finger-carved verses in Courtyard, clay, a fleeting archive. Historians still argue whether such ephemeral art was protest or privileged whimsy. The words dissolve as you read them, each stroke retreating into slurry faster than meaning can settle. Dew-kissed silver dies at dawn, melts into moon-drunk magistrates, chew shadows. The frogs beneath the mulberry croak in ragged unison, their throats puffing the fragmented verses back at you. Did you know Tang poets believed frogs could predict rain by altering their songs? These sound suspiciously like a drinking game gone existential. Your index finger traces the last intact line, a plea about peonies strangled by their own roots. The wet clay accepts this new stanza, then devours it mid-syllable. Poetry as quicksand. Lotus-Broken-Silence materializes, her hairpin absent, sleeves rolled above ink-stained wrists. She stares at the dissolving characters with the hunger of someone watching love letters burn. You've seen the ledgers, she murmurs, not a question. Her breath carries bergamot and panic. 34 syllables. Exactly. The frogs chant them louder, syncopated croaks, forming a crude rhyme scheme. One leaps onto your left shoe, its mottled belly vibrating with silk-robed thieves steal the moon's wages. Lotus-Broken-Silence flinches her toe, erases the word thieves before the amphibian finishes. The verses circle back to mulberries, always mulberries. A line about fruit bursting with phantom sweetness outlasts the others, carved deeper, perhaps. Archaeologists found similar agricultural metaphors in a 9th century courtesan's diary near Xi'an, though those referenced peaches. Lotus-Broken-Silence digs a fresh groove with her hairpin's tip, a character meaning rot that crumbles before she completes the radical. Your thumb finds a half-submerged potsherd, its edge sharp enough to carve. You etch the well's throat holds forgotten shards, just as thunder growls approval. Lotus-Broken-Silence blinks at your vandalism, then laughs, a sound like shattered celadon. She adds, and the shards cut cleaner than magistrates' tongues. Rain accelerates the poem's demise. Frogs swell the chorus, their wet cacophony drowning the steward's distant sobs. A line breaks mid-metaphor. The emperor's tax dissolves before revealing what it becomes. Lotus-Broken-Silence presses her palm flat over the final stanza, accepting the mud's embrace. Her fingertips bleed indigo where cheap dye leaches from her sleeves. The merchant's ghost flickers at the courtyard's edge mouth, moving in silent sync with the frogs. His ledger floats inches above the ground, pages stuck together with century-old tea stains. Lotus-Broken-Silence spits at his shadow, the saliva vaporizing before reaching its target. 34 syllables now chant from the overgrown well, echoes warping them into a seed vendor's street cry. Dawn arrives, not with light, but a beggar's cough from the eastern alley. The poem survives only in frog memory, and your left sleeve's damp hem. Lotus-Broken-Silence examines your stained cuff, her sigh leaving steam ghosts above the clay. Temporary truths, she mutters, though you notice her pocket, a mud-caked fingernail. The frogs fall silent as one, leaving the drip-drip of the termite-ravaged eaves to finish the final verse. Grit nestles between your molars, the sandstorm's breath tastes like oversteeped pu'erh left burning on a forgotten brazier. You spit, praise the Tang heavens for inventing tea strainers, but the dust just laughs. Crumbling ledgers flake from the merchant's ghostly grasp, each page a palimpsest of debts carved in fading cinnabar. His lips move, but sand mutes the numbers, transforming 79 silver taels into the hiss of a tea kettle's last gasp. Camels once carried saltpeter through these storms, their eyelashes matted into grit-proof curtains. You squint anyway, your vision reduced to boiled wool and regret. The merchant points a translucent finger westward, where dunes swallow pagodas whole. Archaeologists still debate whether Tang tax records account for sand-buried trade routes, or if those caravans exist only in ghost journals. A ledger fragment sticks to your damp cheek, its fibers dissolving into something between paper and snakeskin. You try reading sideways. The characters squirm like centipedes, fleeing a lifted rock. Fifth moon, 3 bolts of Sichuan brocade bleeds into 16 jars of fermented scorpions. Historians might call this creative accounting. You call it a bad trip. The ghost rams his head through the courtyard's shattered moon gate, reappearing upside down sand cascading from his hollow sleeves. His abacus clatters, beads rolling through your toes like runaway prayer nuts. Camel caravanners used those beads as emergency currency when bandits struck. True story. You pocket 3, hoping they'll buy a moment's silence. Dust devils spin lotus petals into pseudosand dunes against the eastern wall. Your foot sinks through a mirage oasis of cracked teapots, their spouts gurgling mirage water. The merchant wails, a sound like rusted hinges, and hurls his ledger at the mulberry's skeletal remains. Pages catch midair, transforming into locusts that chew the last verse of Lotus-Broken-Silence's poem. You find an intact teacup beneath the sand, its cracked glaze now textured with gritty teeth marks. 3 long sips grainy but drinkable before realizing it's filled with liquefied dust. Tang apothecaries sold similar brews as Dune tincture, guaranteed to cure lung rot or cause it. The ghost licks his spectral lips, hungry for a taste denied to the non-corporeal. Moonlight fights through the storm, diffused into the color of 8-day-old tea dregs. Your shadow stretches east, bisected by the merchant's translucent torso. A grisly puppet show for the locust audience. He rattles chains made from fused coins, their centers hollowed by desperate teeth. You recall that Tang counterfeiters melted down Buddhist temple bells during droughts, but mentioning this feels impolite. Blindness comes suddenly, the sandstorm thickening into a shroud. You grope for the courtyard's broken well, but find the merchant's ledger instead. His ink stains your palms, numbers squirming like inkfish in a scholar's nightmare. One stable phrase gleams through: debt absolved by scorpion wine. The ghost freezes, his jaw unhinging into a silent scream. Dawn arrives as a rumor, a faint lightning of airborne filth. Your hairline cracks deepen, each follicle packed with enough Gobi desert to start a pottery shop. The merchant's ledger disintegrates, leaving your hands cleaner than a eunuch's conscience. Locusts fall mid-flight, their wings reduced to lace. You toast their demise with a final gritty sip and swallow the cup's last unbroken shard. Dawn's gray fingers pry apart the storm's remnants, revealing paw prints circling the ancestral shrine. Each track glistens, too precise for nature, arranged like a 9-tailed fox's manifesto. You kneel, knees crunching pottery shards from that ill-fated 5th teacup, and inhale iron-tinged air. The steward's daughter crouches nearby, her stolen calligraphy brush dripping ink onto fresh prints. Her fingers tremble not from cold, but the thrill of defying 3 generations of tea tribute protocol. Fox spirits haunted Tang folklore trickster deities, demanding offerings of fried tofu and flattery. You note the shrine's missing persimmons, their sticky residue hardening into amber scales on the altar. The girl's brush hovers, its tip splitting into frayed whispers. First stroke, a downpour of characters. Second stroke, the ink turns crimson. Third stroke, your shadow flinches. Don't, you warn too late. Sunlight licks her parchment, blood-bright hieroglyphs steaming like fresh wounds. Her giggle cuts the haze, sharp as the blade that beheaded last summer's fireworks master. Archaeologists found fox bones beneath Chang'an's pleasure quarters, arranged in coded patterns. Modern scholars dismiss them as rat remains, but you've seen how rats write. She smears the page, translating vulpine glyphs into human pleas. 23 jars missing, south, granary, false-bottomed carts. The ink darkens arterial as she reaches the margin. Tang scribes sometimes mixed menstrual blood into tribute scrolls, a rebellious act disguised as ink shortages. You toss her a lotus pod. Its seeds rattle like abacus beads. Your father counts inventory. Tonight, best plant that evidence in the koi pond. Paw prints deepen, claws scoring the shrine's cypress floorboards. The brush handle cracks, splinters piercing her thumb. Blood inks bloom, a Rorschach map of the courtyard's hidden silver. Historians still argue whether fox tracks near Tang sites were messaging systems or just clever vermin. You pocket a soiled scrap, its characters squirming like caught eels, as the steward's shouts rupture the morning's fragile peace. She flees, bare feet smearing crimson across the veranda, leaving you with a half-finished vulpine manifesto. Dawn's glare intensifies, the shrine's candles liquefying into wax foxes. They scamper east toward the mountains that swallowed last month's tax envoy. You spit grit onto the blasphemed parchment, watching it congeal into something resembling tea dregs or a confession. The last servant's straw sandals scuff the threshold, one heel dangling by a burlap thread. His rice sack leaks fungal constellations onto the veranda, each spore puffing into smoke when sunlight hits. You let him keep the mold. History proves desperate men ferment rebellions from lesser ingredients. District magistrates once executed a governor for hoarding mildewed grain, though tax records blamed weevils. Cicadas choke mid-screech, their opera cut like a Gukin string snapping. The silence throbs louder than monsoon drums as you paw through abandoned cupboards. Rainwater sloshes in a cracked azimuth quadrant, its bronze patina bleeding into your kettle. Some claim Tang astronomers brewed eclipse predictions as tea, but you settle for rusted nails from the collapsed spice racks. Heat shimmers distort the courtyard, gates their hinges, weeping iron tears. Your fire pit coughs ash, no charcoal remains, but half-burned account ledgers. Page 47 ignites first, its columns of missing pepper sacks curling into perfumed smoke. 9th century tax evasion smelled suspiciously like cinnamon. You fish a nail from the murk, its rust blooming like peony petals in water. 3 clockwise stirs, an alchemist's trick stolen from Persian tea masters. The brew blackens, swallowing reflections of the empty servants' quarters. Historians still argue whether estates collapsed from fleeing staff or the weight of unpaid dowry debts. Your cup's chip has grown since Section 5, a jagged coast along its rim. The first sip tastes of lightning and arterial blood, or maybe that's the oxidized iron. A bubble bursts, releasing the perfume of the third wife's stolen jasmine hairpin. You smirk, remembering how she traded it for a smuggler's map of the Yangtze. Pigeons raid the abandoned granary, their coos echoing through hollow beams. One alights on your pot, its claws etching fresh scratches into the patina. Tang pigeon keepers allegedly trained birds to carry tea samplers, but this one just shits on the lid. Shadows stretch, slurping up the courtyard's remaining heat. You count 99 nail fragments settling at the pot's bottom, a lazy attempt at divination. The fourth sip reveals nothing but your own face reflected in tannin black liquid, and something moving behind you. Wind riffles through the steward's abandoned ledgers, their pages whispering ratios of loss. 11.4% interest, compounded over 7 years. The math outlasts the mathematician. Your pinky traces the cup's fracture, where Lotus-Broken-Silence's lipstick once stained the glaze. Dusk arrives unannounced, smearing indigo across the merchant's illicit silver hoard. Frogs colonize the fish pond, their throats puffing with poisoned elegies. You swig the dregs, a sediment of rust and resigned laughter. The taste lingers like an unfinished debate about which plague arrives next. Twilight bleeds through the moon, gates' jagged remains, casting teeth-shaped shadows across your knees. The cup finally sunders, 72 shards chiming like temple bells in reverse. Each fragment mirrors a decade's steam, each crack a whispered secret petrified by time. You sweep porcelain splinters into a lacquer tray, their edges still warm from the dregs. 7th century tea bricks once served as Silk Road currency, though this wreckage wouldn't buy a rat's whisker now. A shard pricks your thumb, drawing blood that beads like overbrewed pu'erh. Foxfire glimmers where the mulberry tree once stood, its roots cradling hollows of tarnished silver. Historians still argue whether the Tang fell to barbarians or the weight of poetry contests bankrupting the provinces. Your laugh rashes the silence, 40 years too late to matter. The moon rises bruised, stained the color of third infusion, leaves forgotten overnight. Light fractures through broken tiles, projecting a phantom 9-dragon mural onto crumbling plaster. Tang nobles actually bet on dragon painting contests, lost fortunes over who depicted the best claws. Wind rifles through the steward's ledgers, fluttering pages etched with dead men's debts. Ink calculations swim, 11% interest becomes 16, becomes 20, becomes why bother counting. You burn the lot, ash motes dancing with the pigeons' stolen rice grains. Something clinks in the well, a final nail working loose from cryptarch bricks. Your reflection wavers, a stranger's face eroded by 72 steaming seasons. 9th century tea masters swore brewing during eclipses caused madness, but you've got better excuses. A frog croaks from the fish pond, its ballad half drowned by toxic algae. You hum the third wife's forbidden melody, the one that made the merchant smash his favorite cup. Mold creeps up the courtyard walls, spelling unreadable poems in necrotic green script. Dawn's first light catches the largest shard, revealing lotus patterns fused with your fingerprint. The air tastes of rust and someone else's nostalgia, like opening a tomb-steamed love letter. Your tongue traces cracked lips 72 years, dissolved into a single thimble of dawn. Twilight softens the moon gate's edges, shadows melting into your lap like spent tea leaves. The cup rests in pieces now, 72 fragments, humming a fractured lullaby. Each curve remembers centuries of steam, each flaw, a story turned to stone beneath your palms. You gather porcelain whispers into the tray, their warmth lingering like a half-remembered kiss. Even broken, they hold more worth than any Silk Road coin. A sliver nicks your skin, blood pooling dark as twilight oolong. Where the mulberry tree once grew, pale lights sway in empty air. Maybe empires fall not by sword, but by the weight of too many unwritten poems. Your chuckle fades, lighter now, carried off by the scent of damp earth. The moon swells, amber as neglected tea cooling in its pot. Cracked tiles paint phantom dragons on the walls, their claws softened by dust. Dynasty ghosts wager nothing now, their gold silt between floorboards. Ledgers rustle like dried leaves, numbers unraveling into smoke. What's 11 or 20 when every debt outlives its debtor? The fire takes them gently, ashes mingling with stray grains of peace. The well exhales, a nail's final sigh from depths you'll never glimpse. Your face in the water blurs, seasons steeped into lines even time hesitates to touch. Madness brews in stillness, or perhaps in refusing to count losses. A frog's croak surfaces through algae-thick water, a duet for your hummed melody. Mold writes its own verses on the walls, green ink spreading slower than regret. First light smooths the sharpest shard, lotus petals pressed into your skin. Air hums rust, and memory swirling like leaves in an emptied cup. You close your eyes, 72 years dissolving, not gone, just steeping in something kinder than dawn.